Okay, kia ora everyone. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you all today. My name's Jamie Denton and I have two different roles here at the university. Firstly, full-time I work as a curriculum development manager for our business school, which means I kind of look after how the programs are developed within that faculty, and also help the lecturers with developing their courses to make sure that they're meeting the needs of a new generation of students that are coming through. The other role that I've got is part-time. I'm also studying my PhD with Esther as one of my supervisors through the Faculty of Education and Social Work. In both my work and my research, they're both kind of quite closely tied together, and they work around that intersection of technology and education, but my research does it largely through storytelling as well, working through that medium of storytelling. So today we're looking forward to exchanging some insights, experiences, and ideas. But before we kick off properly today, just want to reflect on a guiding principle that will go through, kind of guide us mostly through today, which is the whakatauki on screen, te teru whakamori, ko kiri whakamoa, which very roughly translates into look back and reflect so that you can move forward. That's a pretty loose translation, but that idea of keeping an eye on the past to guide us as we move forward. And that's going to be echoing throughout today. So today, what we'll be looking at, and it's a little bit ironic, and I was thinking about this last night, kind of the irony of running a lecture that's about how do we integrate contemporary digital technologies into teaching when the government just banned cell phones from classrooms yesterday. And that irony's not kind of lost on me. And there's a few sort of bits to that, and I'm sure it will come up as we go through today. But yeah, it's an interesting position they've taken. I'm trying to be quite political in the way I'm speaking right now. But yeah, so we'll be looking at how we can use these contemporary digital technologies in our educational experiences and how we can teach through and with the technology. So there's a couple of terms there that I just want to make sure we clarify before we kick off. Firstly, that term contemporary. I try to use contemporary rather than modern, because modern, for some disciplines, has a really set timepiece, and it stops roughly the end of World War II. So when you talk about modern art, it's roughly finishing about there. Then you go into this postmodern period. So instead, I'm trying to use this word contemporary to mean current, now, the present. Okay? So if I do accidentally use the word modern, please just replace that with contemporary, because I'm meaning our world right now. Okay? Digital information and communications technologies. Anyone want to give me a hazard of a guess what we're meaning here? No? Too quiet still? All technologies for telecommunications, audio-visual processing, communication, and accessing information. Cell phones, laptops, tablets, the internet, all these kind of modern, contemporary technologies that we take for granted and we use very frequently. Okay, so all of these contemporary digital technologies that we use. And quite often we'll use this word pedagogy. Has everyone heard of that word? There's a fair few nods. Okay, again, this is a word that I'm trying to get rid of out of my vocabulary. I'm trying to change that word to being learning and teaching, or educational approaches, but old habits die hard. Because pedagogy talks about the art of teaching, It doesn't really talk about what the learner's doing in that moment. It's all about what the teacher's doing in that moment. So, personally, I strongly believe that the learner is just as important in that moment. What they're up to, what they're doing, is just as important. So, again, might fall into that term, and we might hear that word pedagogy here and there. Just substitute that for learning and teaching experiences or educational experience and things. Very roughly today, we'll go through sort of 4 time periods that are kind of interwoven through everything we're going to talk about, which is around how we were using these digital technologies in education just before the COVID-19 pandemic, what the landscape was up to that point. So what was our historical landscape that got us there? How things changed during that pandemic, and then what are our visions of that future post-COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, I don't want to admit or say that COVID-19 was everything. There was a lot of people doing really great things in technology and technology-enhanced learning before that. But what that moment did was it forced pretty much everyone into working with technology in some way. So it might become kind of this watershed, very significant moment for us where things might change, because we had these very resistant people who didn't want to engage with technologies being forced to do so because of the lockdowns and things like that. Okay, so that's why we're using that as a pivotal moment for our discussion. Okay, through today, there will be some use of some polling, some activities that you'll do online. So if you've got a laptop, tablet, phone with you, make sure you've got it up and ready to go. Ideally, laptop would be the best, and then tablet after that, phone in the bare minimum. It'll be a bit harder to do. Okay, so if you can get those out, jump online, head to your Canvas course for this module, for this program. You won't see much there at the moment, but as we go through the day, I'll be unlocking different activities as we get to them. Okay, so we'll get on that Canvas course, into the module for today, and we'll just have to kind of refresh as we go. And different things will pop up as we get to them. Cool, so while you're doing that, just a quick little bit about who I am. I initially trained as a secondary school teacher back in the late 90s here at the University of Auckland, but I decided not to do secondary teaching. Instead, I upskilled and I started tertiary teaching, and I went down to a polytech down in Hamilton called Wintech, and I taught down there for about 6 years. While I was down there, I realised that what I was really enjoying during that time, or when I got closer to the end of that time, was not what I was teaching, but how I was teaching. I got really interested in the approaches I could use, the technologies I could use, the different ways, and I didn't, it sounds horrible to say, but I started caring less about the actual content I was delivering and caring more about how could I make sure that the students were really understanding it and getting a great educational experience. So that led me to a Master of Education and starting to move more towards the education side of things. Around about the same time, life threw me a massive curveball and my mum got very sick and was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I quit. Yeah, I had this great job lecturing down at Polytech. Nah, done, out. Came back to Auckland and worked with, basically I wanted to find a job that I could be with her because it wasn't going to be long. How could I be with her for the last 6 months of her life? Still work because I need money, but still be involved in education. But I couldn't commit to going to classes and things like that because family was the most important thing in that moment. And I found this role which was a learning designer, which led me down this new path, which was working with lecturers to make them better at what they were doing. But it meant that I didn't have that rigid I've got to teach this class, I've got to take this exam, I've got to do this stuff. And so I ended up following that career, and that's been about the last 10 years for me, is following that line, working largely with lecturers on how they can improve their delivery, their techniques, their offerings for their students. Okay, and what that led me to in terms of my research side is I became really fascinated in, as we move more of the teaching out of the classroom and more into the digital world, what happens to the educator and their professional identity. Yeah, if a teacher's all about being in that four walls, interacting synchronously with someone, and then they have to work behind a screen, do they still feel like a teacher? Or are they something new? Have they become a new thing? And that's what I'm researching now. Okay, if you do want to find out anything more about me, there's this on Canvas already, and you can just kind of click in. It's got sort of stuff about my current study and things like that. Okay, time for a warm-up activity. The next thing I'm going to do is unlock the first thing on Canvas. We're going to use Padlet, and I'm going to get you in small groups based off your first name, the first initial off your first name. You're going to find a photo, on keyboard, that you think best represents each of these things. Let me unlock that. So, for instance, here, bad ice cream flavours, lobster, mustard, beans, that kind of stuff. Get your best picture for your group into here. Okay? You obviously are not sitting with each other. So you're going to have to find a way to communicate with each other, because your group is based off your first letter of your first name. A to F, G to L, M to R, S to Z. And at the end of the time, I just want one picture, your best submission, under here. Make sense? Cool. You got 5 minutes, go for it. And that should be unlocked on Canvas now. There should be a link on there. It'll be under there called Technology Warm-Up. Stay where you are, just find your images. Don't worry about that, stay where you are. You've got to communicate via, it's all through the tech.
Both Chinese students, my Chinese name and start with H, but my English name start with V.
Which one would you prefer to use?
Maybe English, I think.
Then use whichever one you like. Okay? Yeah. You choose. Got one photo up so far. You can't put the same one up. Whose pet is ice cream? I'm going to be nice and give you more time. Can I give you one more minute to finish that bit? Okay, 10 seconds. Cool, and stop there. Right, let's have a quick flick through. That dog is awesome. Oh, that is one angry cat. Okay, so what I want you to do now is you go through just as individuals and just click. You see the little, you should be able to see the little heart button. Can you see it? Yeah, no? Yeah? Click on the one for each category that you think is the best in that category. Okay, let's get some voting happening. So which image is the best? And it's sad that the no car is going to win that category. You have to go with that one. Is that Michael Cera? I don't know who that dude is. Okay, Angry Cat wins for me. All right, okay, so let's move on. So, purpose of that is we're going to use Padlet a bit during the session today. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew how to put up images and could add comments and things like that. So we did it in a low-risk way, so if anyone had any problems, we could just sort it out at the time. Okay, so everyone seems to be reasonably comfortable using that. So we should be relatively simple and sorted now. Okay, so I want you to have a think now about what your experiences with digital technologies in education, whether that was you as a student, or maybe you were doing a little bit of teaching or tutoring or coaching or something at the time. Have a think about that prior to COVID, prior to 2020. So what your experiences were at that time. And I want you to go to the next one that I've just unlocked. And there's a poll here. It's going to be a little bit hard to read, but your options are never experienced any use of digital technologies, experienced face-to-face classes that use them, experienced a mix, like blended learning, a fully online course, etc. So if you refresh Canvas, you should be able to access that. Let's have a look at what people's experiences are like. Cool. Is that everyone? Everyone's done it, or anyone we're still waiting on? Okay, so it looks like we'd expect, so most people using some kind of technology inside a classroom. So what kind of things did you use? Come on. Sorry? Laptops, yep. To do what kind of things?
Like writing.
Writing, so like a word processor, like a Word, Excel, Google Docs, that kind of stuff? Yep. What else?
Whiteboard. Teacher would use whiteboard for screening.
Like a digital whiteboard? Yep, cool. And for collaborating with others?
Yeah, and like writing up our ideas.
Yep, great. And thank you for breaking the drought of no one talking, by the way. Yep. What else? Yep.
We use Education Perfect for like language learning.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Yep. What else? Come on, keep it coming. Oh, yep. Kahoot? Yeah, nice. Everyone's used Kahoot? Yep. What else? Yeah.
I did Harmony.
What's happening?
So I did like half of my courses entirely online via Zoom before COVID.
Oh, yep. Yep. And were they mostly using things like an online video and then you did some online activities?
It
That
was
kind of-
entirely on Zoom.
Oh, entirely on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Cool. Anyone else? Yeah.
Students in athletics in like primary school.
Oh, yeah.
Online.
Yep. Anyone else got anything? Interested that some people have never used any technologies at all. Now, it's a relatively low percentage, so only maybe 1 or 2 people here, and a couple of face-to-face online. Cool. Anything you've seen that was really, really cool? No? Oh, was that a hand? No. No, okay. No. Okay. That's a bit... Where's my mouse gone? So I've just lost my mouse for a moment. Okay. So, as I said before, my research is all around how we can use technologies in education, and it's in the grey area between all of these things. In that whole technology, education, philosophy, storytelling around it, and how it affects people's sense of being, becoming, and belonging, especially educators. So I want to start today with a little bit of a story, okay? And that is a bit of a mix between myself and my youngest niece, okay? I was born in 1975, and the technology at that time was this thing, okay? Bill Gates had just released this, okay? This is the IBM 5100, a portable computer, okay? Weighed 25 kgs. Okay, it was in a big, solid, heavy case. It was about the size of like a briefcase, right? So decent size, 25 kg. It cost between $9 and $12 thousand. Okay, so in those days, that was probably about now, maybe closer to sort of 50k. Okay, so this is not a cheap bit of kit. It could do the amazing job of displaying about 15 lines of text, and that was it. Nothing graphical. Just 15 lines of text, and could store 204 kilobytes of information. That's 204, like, basically, most of your Word documents are bigger than that. If you did a quick info on your Word doc, you'd find that most of them are probably up in the megabytes, not even the kilobytes anymore. So but at the time, that was massive because the previous computers were 27,000 kilograms and about the size of a building. It would have taken up about the size of this. But let's have a look at it in action to see how amazing this thing is. And that's about all you can do with it. Okay? And so it's very much just a computer for purely computational tasks, just text, number-based interface, no real graphics. If there was something graphical, this is the kind of thing we were looking at, and this is from an arcade game at the time. This is the kind of quality of graphics. Is that playing? Yep, this is kind of the quality of graphics at the time. Pretty kitsch. So then when we compare it to, that was the year I was born. When we compare it to my niece, who was born in 2008, okay, she was born in a world where MP3s came out 15 years before she was born. Sony had released the PlayStation 14 years before that, and the iPhone 1 had come out a year before she was born. And the computer at the time, this is an early MacBook. At the time, we can see it's more graphical based. It's still not anything great compared to what we're used to these days, but it's got pretty similar to what we're used to looking at, that more graphic based interface. And the kind of graphics that we expect to see in 2008. This is from Metal Gear Solid from the PS3. So as we can see, in that short time, in one generation, so basically from my birth to my niece's birth, we've got this massive change in what technology is available. We've seen the processing power increase, storage capability increase, physical size just drop ridiculously. Yeah, we're down to this. Availability, they're everywhere. They're relatively affordable, and yeah, they're just constantly. And previous to here, we actually shrunk phones even further. When they added a video screen and you could start watching more video content, it grew again. So if you look back at the videos, look at the phones from about 2013, they were actually sort of that size. We kind of really shrunk it in. So what's this mean? The life that Izzy's living and most of you are living is very, very different than the one that I grew up in at my time, right? And so the life I'm living right now is very different than the one I had in my childhood. We've seen these massive changes in every part of our lives. Okay, it changed, all these digital technologies have changed how we live, think, work, communicate, and play. And we've seen these disruptions through everything. Even when we watch scheduled broadcast TV, even though we don't do it very often, it's just technology laden constantly. Just huge amounts of technology being thrown at the screen. And so we're seeing ourselves these days in a world that has a significant blurring of the lines of what is physical, what is digital, and so those biological and technological spheres are really kind of blurred. Okay, so one of the researchers that I reference quite a lot is a lady called Donna Haraway, who back in about 1995, I think it is, from memory, foresaw a world where she called everyone that was going to be constantly interacting with technology in this kind of way as a cyborg. Okay, so congratulations, you're all cyborgs. Okay, where we live in these worlds that are ambiguous, they're natural, they're crafted, we're interfacing constantly with technology and with the natural world all the time. But education hasn't done that. It's been really, really slow to reconsider its original approaches. So I'd like you to take a moment, and we kind of did this already, but just have a think and just put down the kinds of technologies that you've actually experienced in education. What kinds of things? And we talked about it really quickly, but not just in 2020, before 2020, but now. What kind of technologies have you experienced. Okay, so we'll just take a few minutes for that. Feel free to chat while you do it. Let's get a list up. It's just a brain dump, so just things like someone put interactive whiteboards up a moment ago. So that kind of thing, DSLR camera is cool. Yep. I think I saw someone put some dog. Is this going to be one of those ones where I go, what's some dog? And it's like, or is it a thing? Was Discord for legit purposes? Okay. Cool. Okay, we'll just finish up the thought you've got, and then we'll move on. Is there anything on screen that anyone wants to ask about that they're not sure on? I'm kind of curious about the Discord and how that was used. Who put up Discord, and can they tell us a little bit more about it?
I didn't put it up, but the class reps use them a lot for course information.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't use it, I didn't put it up either,
No.
but I didn't use it in high school. But it seems to be a pretty big tool in university for just quick information with a select group of people.
Yeah, that's why I was quite curious, like how it was being used.
Attached to a social media app. Sometimes people don't want to use Messenger because it's attached to Facebook and they might have issues with that.
Yeah, because so you're right, like when social media first started becoming a big thing, people went, oh, let's get all our students to use Facebook. And then people were going, but I don't want to use Facebook. Or I don't want to connect with my teacher via Facebook. Like I've got stuff that I'm doing that I don't really want them seeing that part of my life. And that's legit. So it's cool that it's not connected. Cool. Okay. Interestingly, in 2005, there was a research article that said that the most common use was word processing, so Google Docs, Microsoft Word, that kind of stuff, video network conferencing, Zoom, etc., email, and the internet for researching. And I think if we popped back one slide, that was probably pretty common through many of these things that we're saying. There were a few outliers like digital art, which sounds really cool, videos and things, but a lot of these things were pretty similar from 2005. So not a lot of change there really. 2019, main tools being used, YouTube, Google, PowerPoint, Twitter, which is now X, LinkedIn, Google Suite, so slides, what's it called? Their Word, whatever that's called, etc. So yeah, quite similar. And when we look at the classrooms that they're happening in, so on this side, on this side we've got a classroom from the 1980s. This side from, I think this is around 2018. Okay. It's not that different really. Yeah, students are using laptops instead of writing with a bit of paper and pen. The furniture's a bit more comfortable. There's still a projector at the front of the room, just like here, or information at the front of the room, students in rows. Yeah, the fundamentals nature of that classroom hasn't really shifted that much. They're quite similar. And that classroom here is probably pretty similar to the ones you guys all experienced. Yeah? Teacher at the front of the room pointing out content, just like I'm doing right now, that was being projected at the front of the room. Yeah? This might be a little bit more shocking. Here's a lecture image from mid-19th century. So 1850-ish. Of a lecturer standing at the front of the room where there was a whole row of students sitting quite similar to you people projecting here. What's different from today to this image? I don't have a stick. Really, when we talk about, what is really that different? Nothing. Yet what is the difference between, the IBM 5100 and the MacBook that Izzy grew up with? The world is totally different, right? Everything has changed, but this lecture theatre is exactly the same as this one from 1850. We're doing the same stuff as from 1850. It's kind of mind-blowing, really, that nothing has really changed in education in that time. What's even creepier is when we go back further. And in 1671, here's what they called a magic lantern, which they lit the candle. Sorry, I shouldn't point, I should use my mouse. They lit the candle here, which projected through here to shine an image from here onto the wall here. Okay? Fundamentally, it's exactly the same as that projector. Right? The only thing different is it's using electricity, not a candle. And so around the 1800s, again, we moved the projector into the classroom. So our education system hasn't moved on with the technology. And yesterday, we banned cell phones from classrooms, which is where I said that would probably pop up again. So are we moving forward or are we moving backwards? I'm not going to comment too far on that. So I thought I'll be a bit provocative in the way I'm thinking. Maybe it's me. Maybe I can't think further. So I asked a generative AI to make me images of a futuristic classroom. Yeah, maybe the machines can know how it should look. Deep AI, when asked for a futuristic classroom, gave me a smushed-faced teacher standing at the front of the room with a projector. Then it gave me rows of classroom with a projector at the front. Same thing. Rows, projector in the front. Rows. Cool, we've got some screens now, but we've still got our projector in the front. And I guess that's probably the same again. So it's so ingrained in us that we can't even get our generative AI to think about a new way of doing it. What are your thoughts on that so far? Do you agree? Do you disagree? You're welcome to disagree. Is it something you've thought about before now? No? When we hit COVID, and the streets emptied out, just like one of my favourite horror films, 28 Days Later, and it got all really creepy in Auckland, and there was no cars, no one anywhere. What did we do? What was your learning experience in 2020? What happened? Come on, you all had an experience. Oh, up back first, and I'll come down.
I can't speak about mine because I wasn't at school.
Yep.
I know there was like a whole lot of Zoom classrooms that had trouble disconnecting and reconnecting.
Yep.
And there was a whole lot of like problems we have never had.
Yeah, a lot of online, synchronous, doing it all at the same time stuff still. Yep.
I think it's interesting what you were saying before, how like even in the future it's always like the same model of teaching. And I think a lot of people who have done online school, like for me, when in lockdown, I feel like compared to school, you would go to school from like 8:30 to 3:15 or something. And then I feel like when we were online, you definitely weren't spending that whole time.
No.
It would be like 3 hours of class or something. And I feel like, I don't know if everyone was just being like nice to us and just not assigning us a lot more work, but it felt like a lot less work than when we were in school. But I guess we still got the same results.
Yep.
So it's interesting to think, is this the most efficient model of teaching, even when lockdown, or like people online school can do it at their own pace? And it's like, is that more efficient than actually being in a classroom? Like, I know it's different for everyone, obviously. But yeah, it's
an interesting thought. Was it better? It's an interesting consideration.
I think the reason why we can't imagine a non-traditional kind of classroom setting is because we don't have the infrastructures in place to support a more technology-based learning. Because I live in a suburb, but where my school was, a lot of people who went there would come from Womps, and so they couldn't Zoom in. They don't have service, or some of them didn't even have internet, or it was choppy, dropping in and out, so they couldn't connect like the people who were in suburbs could.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally agree. Where I live out near Helensville, and we're still on not dial-up, but at the time we're on, I think, VDSL. And basically, if it rained, I got cut off. If a cow stood on the cable, I got cut off. It was that bad, it was just terrible. Now we're on Starlink, which is better, but my wife couldn't be on a work call at the same time that I was on a work call. It didn't have the bandwidth for it. It was just such a bizarre experience.
I think another thing is the school education system of like younger is also like a kind of almost a model for like if we were all online, a lot of people and parents actually you can't just have 5-year-olds on their computer or like learning. You can't have, like I remember at my school for like the younger and Isaac, people couldn't, if they had essential workers go and think they actually like, okay, you can come to school and like, because like a lot of school was also like a childcare model almost, like you
Yes.
so that's also a thing that's like kind of hard to imagine. It's like a lot of parents don't work at home and you have children under, I don't know what it is, the age is like 13, 12 or like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They actually you can't, like how do you supervise that? Like you just, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And what I think we need to maybe start to consider is, and I'm not picking on your thought there, but it's not necessarily an either or.
Yeah.
So when we went into the lockdown, what we actually experienced is what we call emergency remote teaching. It wasn't really online learning. And the reason we call it that is because we had 24 hours. Like the Prime Minister said, we're shutting down, everyone's going online. And really to set up a proper online course takes months, if not a full semester of prep. So to do that really, really quickly, what they did was they went into what was quick and easy. So 2020 was messy, it was awful, it was horrible. 2021 was a little bit better. 2022, a little bit better again, and we were learning as we went. But it was, did we have any lockdowns in 22? Or no, I think it was the end of 21 we had our last one, and it was a bit better. It was just, you gave me this kind of, huh? And I was like, yeah, I'm questioning myself right now.
The university, I can't remember, first semester 22 was online.
Yeah, I think schools were in, but we were caught with big rooms. We couldn't have students in. Yeah. So, yeah, we end up in this situation where a lot of people's understanding of what teaching through technology could be is this experience they had through these terrible times, this really rough, quick time. And what people did, understandably, is they went, everyone get online and I'll talk at you. Or watch these videos and then do this thing. Okay? The whole video-based instruction, like I said before, the lecture going back to 16 odd, projectors being back to 1647. Video comes out of World War II. Teaching people through video is something that the American military did to try and win the war because they had all their army not on site. So how are they going to teach them? They sent out a whole bunch of training videos. At that time, film, reel to reel. So 1942-ish, that's the technology we're using when we put video content onto YouTube and tell people to watch it as instructional media. So again, it's really old style. But what we learned is some things just didn't work online. Okay, and I'm sure we all had that. We all had an experience where someone tried to teach online and it was like, meh, that just fell apart. And people often say, and you'll hear it all the time, that the pedagogy should drive the technology. Don't use a shiny new tool to decide how you're going to teach. Well, no, they should be interacting. They should be connected. It should be that you choose the right tool to teach the thing that you're trying to teach. And it's both of those as a consideration. So going back to here, which of these do you think that the educator, and I don't want to pick on your teachers at the time, actually chose that particular tool for that particular job? Did they go, oh, I want my learner to achieve X, so I'm going to use this particular tool because it's the best technology to achieve that particular goal? Is there any of these that you think they've done that with? Scratch? Yeah, the programming language. Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah, and I think I saw.
I think the Zoom calls during COVID, it's the best they could use during that time.
Yeah.
What planning mobile.
Totally. And I don't want to sound like I'm being really negative to them, because I was there as well, and I was doing the same stuff. But we wouldn't want to say that's okay for now. It was great at the time. It was the best we could achieve, but not the best now. There was something that was on here that I thought was really cool, which was somewhere someone put something about having a document that you could collaborate on. And I can't see it for the life of me at the moment. But is it over this side? No, still, I must be blind. But the idea of actually making sure that you're working collaboratively and choosing a tool that you could do that with, that teacher's probably done a really good job in that way. Okay, so something that would be a really good exam question would be this framework. If that wasn't the biggest hint I could ever give you, this is a framework that we use to basically determine how well the lecturer or teacher has achieved what they intended to do. Sorry, I hesitated a lot in that, so I'll try again. Okay, it's a framework for measuring how well the teacher has achieved their intention with the technology. Does that make sense? Does anyone want me to try that a different way? No? Okay, so there's four levels, and this is not a hierarchy. Okay, it's just 4 categories. So we're not trying to always go for one of these. It's just 4 ways of categorizing. And the first one that I'll start with is substitution. This is where we literally just take something that we could have done not on technology, and we've put it onto technology instead. So, for instance, instead of giving you an exam with a paper and pen, you do it on your computer. Okay? Nothing's different. You're still just writing. It's the same activity, right? Creating a digital illustration with just a pen, not colouring or anything, just a sketch on a tablet rather than drawing on a bit of paper, that sort of thing. Okay, could also be, rather than handing out a piece of paper in a lecture, we stick it on Canvas for you to download as a PDF. The next one, augmentation. We're swapping out the stuff we could do without technology, but we're getting a little bit of an advantage by using the technology. So things like Kahoot, we could do the same thing just by getting people to put their hands up in the class. Right? We could still do a quick quiz. We could say, write down your answers on a bit of paper. But the tool gives us a little bit of extra, gives us a bit of fun, gives us some noises, gives us a quick leaderboard, all that kind of stuff. So we're getting a little bit of extra out of it. Modification is where we can redesign the task because of the technology. So things like instead of, maybe you don't feel comfortable speaking in class, so I could have a Google Doc sitting in the background that you can anonymously write in, and at the end of the session I'll go have a look at the questions. Something like that. Okay? So it's a new thing. It's a new way of doing it. Here, redefinition is where you couldn't do it without the tech. The task is totally redefined because of the technology. So something like a virtual field trip to Paris. Perhaps we're doing something in an English class, we read the book, and then we Zoom call the author. We did one in the grad dip secondary, where we filmed a teacher teaching her class, and then the students watched how she taught her class. They made some notes, they came up with some recommendations, then we Zoomed her. And the students of that grad dip class got to talk to her and say, hey, I noticed when you were talking to that child here, you did these things. Why did you do that? What's the purpose? Have you thought about doing this instead? And that kind of communication, we couldn't have 100 people going into a classroom and joining her class. Okay. Your next Padlet. I want you to come up with your own examples of each of these things. Okay? So, an example for each of these different things. Remember, those boundaries between them can be a little bit porous, like what I consider substitution, somebody else might think is augmentation. That's okay. And it's all about that intention. What are you trying to achieve, and did you manage to achieve it? So jump on and let's get some examples up there. Make some noise, chat to the person beside you while you do it. We'll spend a bit of time getting some good examples up for you to have for later on. So like with this one with the Padlet that's just popped up, put down what you're doing with the Padlet. So like using Padlet for this kind of activity or this kind of thing. Great. Just another minute. Cool. Okay. So I'm just going to pick a couple and we're just going to try and test them a little bit. Who put up this online textbooks versus physical copies? Cool. I totally agree. What if there was an app or something that came with it that had some interactive content on it?
Then it would be
Where would you put it?
under A.
Sorry, under A? Yep, nice. Cool. Yeah, so this one, as it is great. Once we add that interactivity, it might slip over a little bit. What else there's some other ones I saw that I thought were quite interesting. I'm going to give an example of my own. When I was at Unitec, we had a problem where we were teaching people how to do welding. And obviously there's a lot of waste when you're teaching students how to weld. Like they're welding. We have to throw away a lot of material. That's not very sustainable. So we came up with a system where they could use augmented reality. So they're looking through some glasses, practicing their welding, which doesn't actually exist. They're not actually welding. They're just seeing a computer simulation of a weld. So they can see how it works. And then we didn't have any waste. And they could just practice and practice and practice. Where would we put this one?
Just said M.
M? I was like, I think I heard it, but I'm hoping someone will say it a bit louder. Yeah, probably in the M. Yep, cool. If you haven't picked up by now, I really like video games, especially for teaching purposes. Assassin's Creed has some amazing historical content that I can use in my teaching. I can get students running through the 1400 Florence. Yeah, they don't have to kill people. They can just go through and have a look at all the buildings and stuff. If I was going to get students go through and have it explore through that world without the rest of the gameplay, where would we put that? Yeah. Yep, there's no other way they can really do that and get a three-dimensional experience. Another thing we did was we were trying to teach health and safety for people who were rock climbing. So they had to come up with a branching scenario. So if I say choose your own adventure or pick a path, do people know what that means? Yeah, so you get to a point and you can go left or right, that sort of thing. The student had to come up and make their own version of that with all of the choices they made when they were going through their health and safety check and what would go wrong if they didn't do that bit. So we could see all of that happening. Okay, where would we put that? Oh, sorry, and that was through a tool where then we could just walk through and just text-based and type in, you know, they didn't check the carabiner and, well, they fell and died and this sort of stuff. Where would we put that?
Maybe augmentation.
Yeah, and that's probably one of those grey areas. I think you could probably argue one of these two. Because I could talk them through it and ask them to decide all of those things, so it's probably here. Or we could say that there's no way that I could go through that with every single student, so I couldn't achieve it. Great. Has anyone got any questions about this, given that it would be a really good exam question? Yeah, they're quite close. Redefinition is when there's absolutely no way you could do it without the technology. So the example you gave earlier about using the scratch bugs and things, the way I've seen that done is people are actually programming and learning programming based off moving like a little bee or something around the grade. So that could work that way. Something like that would work, because you couldn't do it without, because you wouldn't see whether or not it worked. Because even if you didn't have the physical item, you could do it through a software program, but you couldn't really do it without the software in some way. A really cool thing that I did see was somebody teaching music theory using those, because they can play a note, and then you can say, play this note, then play a half tone or a full tone above. So the students had to program the notes to make the scale. And I was like, that's so cool, rather than playing it. Did I see a hand go up around here anywhere? No? Okay, cool. Any other questions here? Nope. Okay. And yeah, please remember, we're not always pushing for here. Okay? Sometimes this, or even not even using technology, is the best thing. Okay? It's just a way of categorizing intention. So the other framework to go through is this one here, which is basically what does a teacher need to know to be effective in a classroom? That's what it comes down to. So typically, a teacher has 3 types of knowledge they need to know. They need to know the content, the stuff they're going to teach. They need to know how to teach. And then if they're going to teach through technology, they need to know about the technology itself. And that's where a lot of older teachers get a bit freaked out, because they don't feel that they know about the technology and what tools and things. When we put these together, we end up with these other levels. So we get these bits here, like the pedagogical content knowledge. What is the best way for me to teach this particular content? You with me? So previously, pedagogy knowledge, just how do you teach? Now we're at, how do I teach this particular thing? Okay? Technological content knowledge, what are the best technologies for this type of content? Technological, pedagogical knowledge, what are the best technologies to teach through? So some you just wouldn't use. And then right in the middle, you've got this one, which is TPAC, which is the technological pedagogical knowledge, which is where everything comes together. And you have a teacher who knows how to teach the content the best way with the technology that they need, that they use. Okay. Any questions? What we've been through today is, I'm not going to read it all out, but the technology has changed everything around society, but not really in education. One of our best tools at this stage is that SAMR model, which we've been through. And by integrating these technologies, it might fundamentally shift who the educator actually is. Okay. Before you take off, I've got one last thing for us to do, which I'll just unlock now, which is this last one here, which is the ticket out of class. Oh. So that should be on now. So if you can just pop through that, and it's going to ask you one thing you've gained from today, one thing you're still a bit confused about, and how you feel after today. When you're done with that, we're all done. You're welcome to come and ask any questions you've got, or thank you.